Beautiful Wednesday on a beautiful fall Wednesday, man. How you doing, Coop?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I think it's that point in the year. We're approaching like mid to late November, and for people who didn't know, Coop and I
Mhm.
we like to really wrap up the year. And last year, for the first time, we did a full 2020 wrap up, and I think that man, I think it's that time to start talking about doing the 2021 wrap up because I think we've probably gotten most of, if not all, of the strong albums that are coming this year, man. What are you thinking about 2021 in relation to 2020? What up, Terminator? What up, Shannon Williams getting in the room, man? Tell everybody we going live, man. We're going to be talking about some of the best hip hop albums of 2021, who should be MC of the year, verse of the year, all that kind of stuff. But yes, you and I did the yearbook for 2020. What do you think about 2021 in relation to 2020?
Uh, First of all, I want to say shout out to everybody coming in the room. Starting to see the familiar faces and stuff. We appreciate the love.
Definitely.
Tell your people to subscribe to our page. Hit the button. As far as relationship to last year, I literally had this thought when I got up today, Mike. I was like, the best three albums this year overall aren't as good as the best three albums last year.
Yeah.
And that's going to make this seem like a weaker year. But I think this year is not as top heavy as last year, but might be better, a deeper class. You know, like this might be a deeper class of albums than last year's class of albums. And last year was very, very impressive. But
Yeah.
I don't know if this year is going to beat last year just because the five best albums last year, just for me, are probably better than the five best albums this year comprehensively when I look at it.
Definitely. And for all the people who might be wondering what we're talking about when we're talking about the yearbook, we're talking about a 2020 yearbook that Coop and myself put together for According to Hip Hop last year that basically chronicalized everything that went on in hip hop, all the records, all the top, 20 verses, top
Mhm.
albums, all that stuff in one book. We're thinking about how we're actually going to package, 2020's yearbook for the people that missed it with the 2021 yearbook that obviously we're working on now because we want the people to actually get involved with helping us put together this 2021 yearbook, and we'll have that one available on Amazon, or if we change distributors, we'll definitely keep people abreast of that. Anyway, the yearbook concept kind of came from, we're just talking about, great years and how basically the internet moves so fast and people go back and change history. And we've seen, or at least I've seen personally, like working with According to Hip Hop, how people will actually rewrite history as it's going. And we figured that the best way to do it is to kind of actually have it in a solid, tangible form so that 5 years from now, people won't tell you 2020 was different than it actually was. But with that
Right.
being said, man, 2020 was a great year to actually chronicleize. I know when we were doing it, you were saying it was one of the strongest years in recent hip hop history. I mean, do you still stand on that?
Yeah, I do because I still would say that it's stronger than this year is. And I told you, like I was saying, this is like this year was setting itself up to be stronger, but that was dependent upon some people releasing projects that have yet to release projects. Conway's second project of the year
Right.
is still not released. Um, we've been having plenty of Kendrick conversations for a couple years now going on. No Kendrick album yet. No Pusha T album yet.
Well, you know
Nope.
what? Terminator 2 brings up a good point. He said he's thinking that Rick Ross may be a contender. Rick Ross put out that he's dropping his album, what is that, December, is it 10th? I'll go back and check the date just to make sure. What do you think about Ross possibly be an album of the year contender based on what we have on our list so far? And we're about to let you guys know what our list looks like.
That's a definite possibility. I mean, for those who aren't familiar with our 2020 yearbook, he was our guest appearance artist of the year last year
Hmm.
because he was everywhere. Even when we were doing the top 20 albums list, I was like, looking, I'm like, man, I'm like, Ross is like on like 6, 7 of these projects. And like,
Right. And
yeah,
and I'm thinking that, speaking to that, I'm thinking that we're gonna get some Freddie Gibbs, Conway the Machine, possibly West Side Gun, and Benny the Butcher on this Ross album. It's gonna look different than what we've seen Ross albums look like, previously. Because hip hop looks different now, right? Like you got guys working with Freddie and Benny and them that wouldn't have in the past. I mean, we just seen Jay-Z put out a record with Conway and Jadakiss. We're probably gonna see Jadakiss on the Ross album. So ain't no telling what this album's gonna look like. The trouble with actually having albums that drop in December in these conversations is we don't really have a lot of time to digest it. And that's one of the reasons why we're actually doing today's show too. Because I know we always get hit with the criticism like when we critique an album the day it comes out. Well, now we've had some time to actually, live with these albums that have come out over the year. We're going to go back and talk about the best releases that happened in hip hop in 2021 since we've had some time to live with it. But the records that come out in December, it's very hard to be able to do that. One that sticks out in my mind is when The Game dropped Born to Rap in December, and a lot of people a lot of our followers voted for it to be Album of the Year over Rhapsody's Eve album. And I'm not sure if it was better than that. It's hard to say. But that was 2019, by the way. So we got to set a deadline, and I'm thinking our deadline is at the end of November, correct?
Yes, and I think I'm going to go back to, I think, something that we said around this time last year is that somebody would have to drop a project in December that we would have to hear like immediately and be like, oh, this is an album of the year contender to include.
It would have to be like on some Illmatic instant classic type shit, right? To be fair.
It would just need to be something that like immediately you would have to say, is this the best album that I've heard this year? I think that's all it really needs to be.
Right.
In order to have that conversation. That didn't happen last year. Ross is a viable contender. One thing that happened with with his last full album was Port of Miami too, right?
Yes, correct.
Rap was literally changing right when he made that album.
Right.
If you actually go back and look at it, like rap was literally in the middle of changing. And what he showed us last year through his guest appearances is that, he's actually become an elder statesman and somebody who's revered by his peers, which is the most important thing. There's nothing better than being revered by your peers, no matter what, format that you're in, no matter what your career, job, profession is. There's nothing better than being revered by your peers. And so you see that this younger generation reveres him. And so it's going to be interesting to hear what his project sounds like as an elder statesman who's revered, who's literally watched the game change since his last project, and based on his guest appearances from last year and this year, has impressively adapted, Mike.
Him and 2 Chainz have done a very good job of that, and it's interesting they did a versus together. But yeah, they're highly revered by the younger generation, and they seamlessly are able to work with people of their generation, the younger generation, people on the underground set, whoever's popping. So it's like you can really tell where hip hop is by listening to a Rick Ross album or whatever comes out at that time, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. You know what? Do you want to? All right, we're going to get into our top 5 hip hop albums of 2021. Is there any other business that comes up before that? Okay, you know what? Let's just get into it, and I think that's going to spawn some of the other discussions. Do you want to start from 5 to 1? Or are we going to just kill the suspense? Because I think a lot of people are already kind of.
Yeah, we might as well go from. I think no, because I think by the time we get to like 3, if the album's not named, but yeah, we can start at 1. Actually.
Okay, we'll start at 1. What is your 1 for album of the year?
It's King's Disease 2 by Nas.
King's Disease 2 by Nas. I'm gonna have to agree with you. It was actually number 1 on mine too. Just to make sure I wasn't tripping, I put King's Disease 2 on today and just let it ride. And it actually sounds better now than it did when I first played it. Nas, again, like, not to be redundant, but just like what we said in the beginning when it came out, or months ago when it came out in our broadcast immediately after, he sounds extremely comfortable. Hit Boy did an incredible job. I think, in my opinion, best job I've heard him do producing a full effort, especially with everything considered, working with someone who people deem as a bad beat picker, and we did say we were going to talk about that too. And yeah, I just love the album from beginning to end. I know Terminator 2 is going to probably crack up when I say this, but the lowest point of that album was Eminem's verse on EPMD 2. But other than that, I mean, this album is damn near flawless. I mean, and obviously, we're not talking about flawless in the sense of like we're hearing Nas from It Was Written, Illmatic, or whatever. He's not that MC anymore. That's fine. It's kind of like it's like comparing Air Jordan, the guy with the 48-inch vertical, that's leaping over 7-footers, dunking on 7-footers, averaging 37 a game, to the Jordan on the Wizards. And the Jordan on the Wizards gets a bad rap, but Jordan on the Wizards was dope as hell. He changed positions. He was a small forward now. He was playing big. He was playing with his back to the basket. He was more of a rebounder and defender, and he adjusted his game to, if he could have been in any system that was contending, that would have been a big difference. Saying all that to say, the comfortability that Nas has in his skin at this stage in his career is very special. He's not trying to fit in, and I think he knocked this one out the park with KD too.
I'm going to agree with a lot of those sentiments, so let's stay with that Jordan with the Wizards sentiment, and specifically to a strong point that you made. First of all, Jordan with the Wizards, I think a lot of people forget, he took some more time off before he came back.
Yeah.
Didn't he take like 2 or 3 years off?
Yeah, it was from 98 to like 02.
2001.
Yeah, 01. Yeah.
Oh, right. It's like, so he took 3 years off, came back, and averaged 20 points for a dysfunctional, not too talented team.
That he was the GM of.
Well, that was part of the reason why the team wasn't too talented. That's a whole other conversation for another day. But you know what Nas did that MJ didn't do? Oh, well, he got in the right system. That's why this whole Hit Boy thing. I mean, this Hit Boy thing is kind of going understated for how important this is, because this isn't like MJ with the Wizards. This is like, imagine that guy that could take 3 years off and still go get you like 20 to 22 points a night and get you like 6 rebounds and 6 assists. Like, imagine that guy that would have been playing for one of those contending teams at the time. Like, let's say, for instance, how about this, Mike? You take Scottie Pippen out of that Portland team in 2000 when the Lakers beat them in that Game 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you take, isn't that 2000 or is that 2001?
No, that was 2000. That was 2000 because that was the Lakers' first championship.
So put Mike on that Portland team.
Come
2
on,
years
man.
off of basketball, they win the championship.
Come on. I mean, not even close. We talking about that whole meltdown that happened in the fourth quarter in Portland would have never ever taken place.
So this is like MJ not going to the Wizards. This is him going somewhere like Portland or Houston.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what like KD2 is. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, no, and you can see it's like, no, this dude can really, really hoop. And he still has those moments on this album, like to keep the MJ thing going, where it's like, no, he goes and gets you 35 on some of these records. Like Death Row East, no, that's 35-40. You know what I'm saying? Run, Nobody. Yeah.
Well, I mean, people are saying this is more like LeBron. They don't like my Jordan Wizards comparison, but the reason why I'm comparing that is because Jordan changed whole positions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people can say LeBron is a point guard, but he's not really. You know, he's not out here guarding the point guards or anything like that. I mean, the player that there's like, 4 different phases of Jordan as a player. Like, you got Air Jordan, which, again, I think a lot of people forget about when they talk about the athleticism, possibly the most athletic basketball player to ever play the game. And then you got the Jordan that came back from baseball, where he bulked up and he had a lot of upper body strength. Well, no, hold on, I skipped one. You got the Jordan who bulked up for Detroit, who still, wasn't like super upper body strength, but he was stronger now, and he was able to rely on a bit of a jump shot. And then you got the one that retired, came back, and was in baseball shape, and now he has a lot of upper body and is really playing with his back to the basket. He can still leap, but he's not 48-inch vertical. But you're talking about the other one that came back after another break and went to the Wizards, and now is a small forward. And if you watch those games, and you seen that block that he did where he blocked dude's layup and hit it to the backboard. That's him playing big.
I haven't seen it, but I remember when that happened.
Yeah. So it's like, and I say that in relation to Nas because I'm listening to the King's Disease 2 album, and he's super dope on there. You know what I mean? But he's not Silent Murder dope. And that's fine, you know what I'm saying? He's able to make it work, and I think that's the remarkable part of it.
So, I told you, one of the most striking things about KD2 for me is that, like, I hope you understand how truly great this guy was on Illmatic, and on It Was Written, and on Stillmatic, and, like, the Lost Tape, like has an MC, Mike, because it's like, that's the only thing that's keeping this album from being a blistering classic is the fact that we know that guy existed and lived. So it's like, no, the guy that wrote I Gave You Power or Take It in Blood or Silent Murder or The World Is Yours. No, he's not that guy. Nobody's that guy. But he still has moments where it's like, oh, that guy is still alive. He still just like Jordan did with the Wizards. It's like Jordan didn't go get 20 points every night. Mike had nights where he went and got 37, 38 points that night. That's what King's Disease 2 is. It's like, no, he's going on some runs on here.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's super dope on there. And EPMD 2, he killed that joint. You know what I mean? And like we were talking about offline, because I know a lot of people are sitting here saying that I'm tripping about the Eminem thing. But Eminem's verse on it was trash. Nas's verse was dope.
No, we are not making this about Eminem.
No, we're not going to make this about Eminem. But I'm just saying, if it would have been the other way around, people would have been like, yo, Eminem killed Nas on the record. I saw in that group that we're in, you and I are in, somebody posted dead wrong and talking about Eminem smashed Biggie on there. And it's like, dude, you have to understand. The Eminem laid verses down that were over a track that contained 2 Biggie verses that didn't make it on any Biggie album and that were pre-ready to die. And the man was gone. What are we talking about here? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is that even a conversation? Like Jada said, man, made real songs with Biggs, no made up shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that, like I don't even, but see, again, I'm just saying, that's bottom feeder stuff, and that's how people will spin when Eminem's on the record with you. But when Nas does his thing on the record and Eminem's trash, we're not supposed to talk about it?
So, Mike, this is what I mean. Okay, so understand how polarizing Eminem is. Lyrically, Mike, if you go listen to Nas's verse on there, it's actually one of the best moments on an album where he's as lyrically as sharp as he's been in about 20 years. But people are so concerned with Eminem being on there. You're missing the fact. Did you not just hear Nas go crazy on the song?
Yeah.
And Mike, and EPMD 2 is probably the weakest song on there. And that's why I'm like, if that's the weakest song, and Nas sounds like that, and he has EPMD on there, and we're arguing about the Eminem verse back and forth in terms of some people saying it's trash, some people saying it's a smash. It's like, no, that's not just album of the year shit, Mike. That's like classic album shit. Because it's like he has classic albums where the weakest song on there, Mike, don't make me bring up Braveheart Party again. It's like that Stillmatic is still out there with Braveheart Party on there. EPMD 2 isn't that.
I mean, listen, I agree with you 100%, but I think Eminem's verse is so trash on there. It unfortunately makes people not look. And this is the reason why, right? Nas's verse is so dope. This guy goes on for 32 bars? It's such a long trash verse, too. If it was short and trash, it would be cool, and I think we would highlight how dope Nas's verse is even more.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I think at the beginning, doesn't Nas take 8 bars and then he comes back after EPMD and does a 16.
Yeah.
I think M took the same bar time Nas did. I
Nigga,
think
it ain't your song.
I mean, you know,
It ain't. It's that 4-3-2-1 cannabis shit. Come on now.
I'm just breaking down the logistics.
I'm sorry.
And it's big stuff when Nas calls you to be on an album because he's not a big he's not a big guest appearance moments guy. He's not, let me bring this guy on my album to make a big moment. Like, Nas has never really been that guy. But this is one of the things, this is what I mean about playing with the right team. Well, if you notice, these last two projects, part of the reason why they sound current, part of the reason why they sound great, and this is probably the Hit Boy influence and him being around, like, the younger generation, it's like he's letting Nas know, no, like, you're Nas. It's cool for you to do a record with anybody. Like, them doing the record with you is the thing.
You know what Quincy Jones would have done? And I get it. This is the only drawback of having somebody like a Hit Boy producing somebody like a Nas and Eminem record. Quincy Jones would have cut this nigga's verse in half. He would have. Because really, man, sonically this just doesn't even make sense. And they let him go and they let him continue to spit this BS verse because he's Eminem. And the song suffered from that, unfortunately. Same as why, Jay let that trash-ass Renegade beat on the Blueprint, and the album suffers from that. Like, it just does. You want to sit there and let that pass? And you know what? Renegade, he made up for it with his bars. I'll really say the song that was on the Black album. You let that track on there, and their album suffers from it because you won't sit there and be honest with the fact that your shit's just not up to snuff because of who he is.
That's more valid than the Renegade comment. The what is it? Moment of Clarity.
Moment of Clarity. That track is trash.
Yeah, that beat has no place on that album at all because he picked mostly great beats. I feel that album
because he picked mostly great producers, and so yeah.
So Mike, but this is what I mean, and it's like, that's why I told you, Mike, but if you go pull up King's Disease and King's Disease 2, it's like, well, Hit Boy and Nas are hitting more than they're missing. And if that's the miss, it's like they're hitting at a really, really high clip, and they're still giving you other moments, like the joint with Lauryn Hill.
Oh, like, definitely. Great feature.
The full circle joint with the Firm last year, Mike. It's like, no, Nas hasn't been known for having moments like this with other artists on his album. That's the Hit Boy, like, updating your formula, to speak, influence. And more often than not, it comes off well. If you want to call EP and D2 the low moment of this album, I'll agree with you. And I'll also tell you that's exactly why it's the album of the year, clearly, right now.
I agree with you. And I'm only bringing this up and dumping down on Eminem's verse because it's true, first of all. And two, I think that Nas's verse on EPMD2 is actually a verse of the year candidate. It gets overlooked because of that shit. You know what I'm saying?
He had some verse of the year shit on there. That's one of them. Yeah.
It's one of his strongest individual verses on this really dope album.
Yes, Mike.
No,
correct.
I agree. And
we spend so much time talking about Eminem, we forget the fact that it's like, yo, did you just hear like Esco? Like,
now I love YKTV too, and I was listening to that today. I was like, man, this song plays really well. Period. Like, it just sounds like they having fun, man. And that's the kind of featured appearances, especially when you're talking about generational gap things. It didn't sound forced, and again, I'll give Hit Boy a lot of credit for that too. Making every artist that was on there feel comfortable and Nas adjusting to that zone. I think that was a really, really dope moment in the album too.
Well, this is why King's Disease 2 is better. Well, like I told you, like, one was like a practice session. It's like, oh, they sounded comfortable together on the first one. They zoning out on this one, Mike. Like when I heard Brunch on Sunday and then Count Me In, I'm like, man, I was like, go ahead and wrap this shit up. I'm like, somebody got to do something great. I'm like, because he pretty much, because their chemistry is pretty much to the point. I mean, Mike, since we making NBA references, it was like on some Stockton and Malone shit. Definitely. Like at the point, it's like, oh, well, everything Hit Boy handing him right now, he's smashing. He can go do Brunch on Sunday. He can get back on his rap shit with Count Me In. And this is the back end of the album, Mike. This is after Store Run. This is after Moments. This is after Nobody. It just keep going. I'm like, oh, they zoned out.
Well, you know what? Since we got KD2 as album of the year, I want to ask you some more questions about the album. Specifically, like, what do you think is Hit Boy's best produced song on there?
It's Store Run, Mike.
Store Run? I was going to
It's
go Store Run, too.
Store
I like
Run.
Nobody as well.
So nobody's up there too, but let's go to the Hit Boy interview and what he talked about. He's like, he's pretty much saying like that. He's like pretty much saying like Nas is a thoughtful dude. You got to give him room to breathe and talk his shit on the track. Like he pretty much said, it don't matter how dope a Nas beat is, because you ain't buying a Nas album to hear like dope beats. Like you buying the album to hear Nas, and so. What he's actually done a great job of is, and this is from a modern day producer that's taught to do it big stadium style, he's actually toned it down and given Nas a soundscape to speak on.
Let me put your comment in context too for the people in the room who might not know. You're referring to the Hit Boy interview that he did with Mal and Rory, where I think it was Rory asked him about the notion that Nas is the worst beat picker. I think he was referring to Vlad or whatnot. Because I don't think there's a lot of people who go out there on that, who sit on that soapbox. But he asked Hit Boy about that, and that was his response, where he was talking about you got to make beats around Nas's lyricism or soundscape. I do want to kind of stay on that for 1 second, and we'll get back to Katie too. Go ahead. No, I don't want to interrupt your thought process either. Go ahead.
So let's stay there right quick. I've stated on this show, it's like, no, he's not picking bad beats. He's picking beats that don't fit what he does well. Those when the beats sound bad, like Mike, I'll give you a prime example. The Flyers with Nas and Pharrell. It's like, no, that beat is dope. That beat's not for Nas.
I was just about to say that. I was about to say, when people say this about Nas, I want them to actually start naming some songs with beats that they don't like.
They're talking about those records, because I hate to say it, Mike, when I listen to the Flyers, I'm like, no, that's for hoes.
Because when we talk about, Nas and him doing things that don't fit in what we like, You Owe Me always comes up, right? So do you think You Owe Me is a bad beat? Is that a bad Timbaland beat?
Mike, that's one of Timbaland's worst beats. That is a bad beat. I
didn't like the other one with Aaliyah, that You Won't See Me Tonight.
No, both of those, Mike. So when you're talking about bad beats, those are two bad beats. And it's crazy to say, those are like two of my least favorite Timbaland beats. And not because they didn't come off well with my favorite rap artists, because those beats really aren't that dope. It's like, that don't hit like Hey Poppy hits. This is around the same time. That shit don't knock like that.
What do you think Nas would have done with Hey Poppy, though? You think he would have...
See, but that's the thing. That's not for him. Timbaland and Pharrell, aesthetically, with what they do, really isn't for him. It doesn't fit. What they do well doesn't fit with what he does well. It's just big names coming together. It's all glitter. It's gold.
I used to knock Nas for that, though. I used to knock his versatility for that. And now, thinking back on it, I think that's more of a knock on the producer. It's the producer's job. And I got to give Hit Boy credit. He was able to do that. And he was able to do that without trying to recreate what Large Professor or DJ Premier or, whoever did for Nas.
The most impressive thing is that he did it by his damn self.
He did.
Every time Nas has been all-time great, it's been a collection of producers. Stillmatic, Illmatic. It was written, even though his track masters, Mike, Havoc is still on there, LES is still on there, Primo's still on there. You feel me?
I owe Trackmasters an apology, man, because for years, I guess because coming off of Illmatic, I blame them for derailing, Nas's career musically. And looking back on it, they made some really dope music for Nas. And I think they did a really decent job of adjusting to him and adjusting to the times. So now, Nas is not going to be LL Cool J on the Trackmasters record. And really, when you look at Trackmasters and what they made for Jay and what they made for Nas, I think they made better records for Nas.
Because they did.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, this is what I'm saying. This is like, The Message ain't a bad beat.
No.
Shoot Up ain't a bad beat.
No, it's not. Listen, I like Street Dreams.
Mike, I mean, Street Dreams is dope. Like, nigga,
I like the remix too. They did the remix, right?
like the remix better than the original.
The remix
Truthfully.
is insane. He went nuts on there.
Even when people are like, some of the beats on it was written or whack, I'm like, no, like, you gotta let Nas spit. Like, Mike, Take It in Blood is a prime example of people thinking Nas is picking a bad beat. It's like, no, Nas needs a beat like that. That's a lot of loops and beat breaks and samples. He comes off well on there, and then you hear a spit game on there. It's like, that's why you picked that beat for Nas.
You know who I don't think is a great beat picker, and I love him as an artist, and we just did a little verses on it, but when you talk about him in relation to his contemporaries, I don't think T.I. is a great beat picker. I think that he has his moments. When him and Toomp work together, it's magic. But him and the Neptunes just haven't been able to maximize on that potential of both of their individual skill sets. I think that bothers Pharrell. You know what I mean? Like, especially since he worked with T.I. from the jump. Yeah. And it's like, you don't agree with the fact that the Neptunes and T.I. haven't maximized on their individual potentials together?
I mean, when you say maximize, I think you want to hear something more epic from them in terms of what maybe Pharrell has done with Jay or done with Snoop, because T.I. is capable. But
not even that. Even if we're talking on a Pusha T level, even if we're talking on a Busta Rhymes level, like the things that they've made for damn near anybody, Mystical, Ludacris. They don't have a Southern hospitality together. They just don't, and they've tried a lot.
I mean, a lot of people like Pussy Papa #1 like that, Mike.
It's a good song, but it's not. I don't think that's a top Neptune
Mike,
anything.
No, it's not, Mike. I'm a big fan of Freak though off Urban Legend. That's the Neptunes. That's Pharrell and T.I. I love that record, but
that might be their best collaboration.
That is their best collaboration.
Either that or Hear Ye. And I know that didn't really come out like that, but that was mostly about the verses on there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the best collab to me is Freak though off Urban Legend. And what I would say is I felt like they just probably needed to get in more of that groove. And, just like sometimes time doesn't permit it. Like, sometimes the game don't allow you to get into a groove with the artist. So let's go back, since we're still talking about our #1 allotment, which is KD2. Oh, Nas is a legend. Like, he got time to pull up on Hit Boy and sit down for however long. He got the money, he got the time, he's already a legend in the game. Like, some of these cats don't have time and space to move like that, so you also got to look at where T.I. and Pharrell were in the game and how they were moving. So maybe we didn't get that moment because the time wasn't spent.
And that's interesting. When you got people in the prime of their careers, you want them to work together, but in the prime of your careers, that's when you have the least amount of time to actually be able to focus.
Right. Like, so let's go to something right quick. It's like, in tennis, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal have been the two biggest, players in terms of wins and majors, and Djokovic too over the last 20 years.
Djokovic's been kicking their ass.
I mean, he hasn't been kicking their ass. I think it's been so long. Don't forget that they kicked his ass for the first about 5, 6, 7 years. So the last 5, 6, 7 years, he's just been returning the favor. And they all got about the same majors. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. What I'm saying is that Nadal and Federer did an exhibition match where they played on grass on one side and clay on the other side. But they didn't do that until they were both injured and hurt. And their legacy, like, Mike, this was about 4 or 5 years ago when it was like, oh, well, I don't know how many more of these guys are going to win. They may have about 3 or 4 or 5 in them, and they've only won about 3 or 4 or 5. In their primes, you would have never gotten that exhibition match out of them. They wouldn't have had the time. They wouldn't have taken the time. It literally took them being old and being injured for them to do an exhibition.
That happens a lot in hip hop, and and I got to give credit to people like Redman and Method Man. We were able to see them actually come together and make a collaborative album, at the prime and zenith of their abilities and careers. I mean, I wish we could have gotten an album from them in '96, but getting one in '99, 2000 wasn't bad either. You know what I mean?
Like, you want to know a pairing that hasn't done a lot of work together that I love to hear, and you'll like it too when I say it, because they're both so colorful and animated. I love it when Raekwon and Busta Rhymes get together, Mike.
Yeah.
Like, every time I hear them get together, I'm like, damn, why didn't they do this sooner? Ray's so colorful with the words. His voice is so clear and got the strong delivery. You already know what Busta's bringing. They sound great together.
Q-Tip and Busta, too. And, and while we're talking about Busta, I would have loved in the prime of, what the Neptunes were doing, and maybe Busta around the 2000s, around the what it is right now era, if they could have done an album together. But Yeah, I think that back to my point about T.I. and the Neptunes and T.I. being an interesting beat picker, you hear about the beats that T.I. passes up on, like Hustling from Rick Ross and everything that's just been around him. It's like you would think that his production would be better in the abilities that he has. Like when you match him up with Game, I'm like, man, this is an excellent beat picker versus somebody who needs improvement in that department.
So that says a lot about who he is as an MC and the heights that he's reached, Mike. When you actually look at the beats that he's picked, and even some of the beats on some of his big singles, it's like Mike, when you go listen to the beats of even like Mike, what's happening? We love that record. That's not like some sort of awesome beat.
But people want to sit here and give Nas that label when this man has Made You Look in his arsenal. He has Nas Is Like in his arsenal. He has The World Is Yours in his arsenal. And you talking about he's the worst beat picker?
New York State of Mind.
What? Like I could pick 20 people I would consider worse beat pickers than this guy. Because if we're going to a cipher or something, and I got an artist whose whole catalog of instrumentals we could choose from, and I got Nas here, I'll take that. That's cool.
But let's talk about what they're really talking about. Nas doesn't pick beats that cats normally can just get in their whip and ride to and just bounce to and not listen to the words. He's not that artist. He's never been that artist. That ain't what you buy Nas's shit for. That's what this is about. Like, you're never going to buy a Nas project and ride to it the way you're going to ride to some of Jeezy's prime shit. It ain't built like that.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad that, that was addressed, but, Hit Boy kind of answered it like, you kind of have to basically do your job as a producer to be able to make the best material around, what he's coming forth with, because he's coming forth with some great concepts, and that's the incredible thing about Nas too. He's a great concept writer, and if you're a producer that's into that and into the scope of making a song, you should be invigorated by doing that. You can't just give him a beat. Y'all kind of got to build this thing together. And I think that's another thing with Nas, and like you said, just people feeling like he doesn't fit on the track. I think his process is more of, I write the rhymes beforehand and then hear the tracks and try to put them together, which I always thought that's kind of how Illmatic came together. And if it came together in that way, that's incredible, because usually it's better to actually hear the track first and the writer be able to write around the track. You know what I mean?
No, so Mike, I think when they were like doing, it was like one of the many, many reviews like done on Illmatic talking about how it was made. Talking about a 17-year-old kid going in the booth. I think he said like he wrote New York State of Mind when he was like 15.
Right.
And he like went into the booth and like spit it over the track. And like when he got done, he was like, so how does that sound? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you talking about somebody that probably like book of rhyme upon book of rhyme upon, you know what I'm saying? Because the ability to have like a book of rhymes, but to be able to pick it and then to go in there and be it like that's genius.
We never hear about this part of it. Not to interrupt you, but with that being said, did Nas pick the beats on Illmatic, or was this a collective effort from all the people who were on board, and maybe Large Professor kind of made final decision? Like, I've never heard of that part of it. Did Nas pick the beats?
Mike, Q-Tip is probably the best person to ask. You remember when he played that original version of Memory Lane that didn't make the album,
right?
Like the other Primo beat. That's actually a better beat, Mike. Like Beat the Beat, it's a better beat, but the fluidity with which Nas is flowing fit better on the other track, and so that makes me think that he had just more of a collective thread around him in general making those types of calls.
I think so too.
No, that shit is hard, but you sound like the greatest of MC of all time on this.
Because there was a lot of material that was cut too, and I've heard a lot of those songs, and whoever cut them, they made the right decisions. And not the fact that those songs weren't good, it's just that they weren't the best. And they, like you said, some of the stuff that we knock Nas for after the fact, or him not sounding whatever on a track, those were in existence on the cutting stuff, the stuff that was on the cutting room floor. Like Deja Vu comes to mind first off,
I
and
was
that's
like
the
Dice Game, and I'm a villain.
I love Dice Game. Dice Game's one verse, but Deja Vu's like 3 verses, and the track is cool, but it's nothing that
Not better than One Time for Your Mind, which is the weakest song on Illmatic.
Exactly. And so I think it was a collective there, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's how, Thriller and things like that became so great, because you have a lot of different ears, a lot of different music people who are able to make great decisions. I don't want to go off on a tangent or anything, but to piggyback on that, I was looking at a Beehive interview. Shout out to Beehive out there. And he was interviewing KP. And KP basically was talking about, and for people out there who don't know, KP was a member of PA, and PA came before Outkast. They were literally the first group that was produced by Organized Noise, and when they did their thing, that was the start of the hip hop sound in Atlanta in that way. And Organized needed their own group, so they went out and found Cass, right? But anyway, KP was still on with LaFace, kind of doing some A&R work. And basically, long story short, he basically said that, they knew Outkast was going to be something. These guys were young, they were spitting, and they just had it all. They were cool, they had the image. So when it came to Southern Playalistic, it was all hands on deck. So, and you can hear that in Southern Playalistic, and that's one of the reasons why I give Southern Playlist so many props in relation to like an ATLians, because you could tell everybody had their hands in that, and it was an all hands on deck situation, kind of like an all eyes on me was.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Illmatic was too. When you look at the production staff there, they understood that this was a special moment. This guy was a vehicle, and it's all hands on deck.
I mean, Mike, a good majority of your greatest rap albums of all time are built out that way.
Yeah.
It's not just those. I mean, Mike, we can go to the Chronic. America's Most, Mike.
Yeah.
It Takes a Nation of Millions. Like, it be all hands on deck with it.
And you can hear it, too.
You can hear it, Mike, they all hands on deck on Soul Food, too. Like, it's like, oh, we on? Let's make sure we stay on. It's all hands on deck.
I had a conversation with Ray Murray some years ago from Organized Noise. He told me to Get Up, Get Out was CeeLo's song. Because CeeLo was supposed to be solo, but they had the album coming out, and boom, you got the song. I don't have a deal yet, so boom, it's your song.
Mike, Gippin said countless times, I've written hit records that, you've never even heard, like, me on. Like, it's my idea, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it'd be all hands on deck with those classic projects.
Especially back then, when you got somebody that's about to put on for the whole team, like Queensbridge, the whole city of Atlanta. It's like, yeah. And I think that's one of Ali's things, too, when it comes to this whole Nelly back and forth. They knew Nelly was the vehicle for St. Louis. And I don't know who wrote what, who did what, whatever. I'm not, saying anything to, insinuate any of that. But everybody knows that, like, look, this is our shot, so we're going to put in the work we need to make sure that this individual is as successful as possible.
Oh, you're right.
And so, yeah, Illmatic was one of those moments. But the thing is, unfortunately, when that moment's gone and then the artist comes with that sophomore effort, it's not the same. And you could tell there's something missing, but you can't really put your finger on it. You know what I mean? And then people start calling Nas a bad beat picker. Saying all that stuff to say, that's where that comes from.
No, I mean, Mike, if you actually just want to talk about bad beat picking, some of the beats on I Am are just bad. Dr. Knockboot is bad. You Won't See Me Tonight is bad. Like that, but it was written, no.
I didn't like, production-wise or beat-wise, I didn't love Favor for a Favor.
They could have done better.
Yeah.
of the two artists coming together. But Mike, I still love Favor for a Favor. I
I
actually
think it's a
play,
really good song. I mean, but it's like the beat. I
and
think the
also
beat
Mike,
with on the song with DMX, it just could have been better.
Mike, and this is another thing too. Even with Favor for a Favor, like Nas is first to so much stuff. You ever heard a New York dude rapping with Face before Favor for a Favor?
I'm gonna have to think about that. Did him and Jay collaborate yet? No, I don't think so.
The collaboration doesn't happen until 2 years after this.
Yeah. Well, no,
Mike,
Jay was on Untouchables, but yeah, it was
that's
that was
after.
2 years after. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mike, who the first New York nigga to rap with Dre again?
yeah. It was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even what he's doing right now with Hit Boy, man, that is revolutionary, and hopefully,
A big.
those type of collaborations will continue. Um,
Oh, Mike, I want to hear KD3. That's how impressive this run is by them.
okay, so you say the best beat on this album is Store Run. What would you say the best song is at this point?
It's either Store Run or Death Row East for me, or Nobody. Between those three.
You really like Death Row East a lot.
Death Row East is a banger, Mike. Nas don't make bangers. That's where some of the beat picking stuff comes in too. Is that how about this? Death Row East. I mean, Mike, and I don't club anymore, but Death Row East would be the type of record that if I was getting up and getting ready to go out, I would throw it on when I was riding out to go out. Like, how many times can you say that about a Nas record? And here he is, like, pushing 50, making a record like that. And what's beautiful about the record is that he did it his way. It's a story, Mike.
And he's educating, or at least telling his side of the story.
And Mike, and it's one of the biggest like rap stories ever. On top of it, it's the beef with Tupac. It's
And
like
he's involved. You know what I mean? Like,
and he's directly involved. Like he got his name shouted out on Machiavelli, and not in a nice way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so he's lending credence to all the gossip and rumors, but also clarifying and educating, like you're saying at the same time. And the shit slaps on top of that. It's
and I like that he started the album off with that too.
Mike, and it's crazy that they said that's the first record that they did. It's like, oh, that's the type of record that if that was the first record you made to start off, you like, let's go.
Yeah, you got to set the tone, and I think that those type of records are important, and they set the tone and give you the momentum to be like you said, let's go.
But this is what I mean is that it shows you that he's updated the formula. This is Nas being who he is on a track. The track is a modern track. Mm-hmm. But here's what Hit Boy did. It kind of has a West Coast feel. He talking about Pac. So he wants the cats on the West to be able to ride to it too. Hit Boy from the West. So he like, nah, like this Nas from Queensbridge talking about Pac. So it's got a little West Coast flavor to it. They're thinking, Mike.
I love the drums on Store Run too. I know we were just talking about the production of Store Run, and I think Store Run is a really dope song. Moments I liked a lot too.
So let's go to my favorite three records. You want to know what's great about them? The hooks are great, Mike.
Yeah.
Become a dope ass hook writer. Like the hook, the Death Row East, Store Run, and Nobody. Those are all top notch hooks. You know.
I like Nobody a lot. I was listening to Nobody today, and I'm like, this is a really, really good song. Like if we put together Nas' greatest hits, it's a possibility it could be on there.
Mike, all three of those records, I think, because I think his greatest hits would probably be a double disc now. I think all three of those records should go on. Yeah. That is my actual feeling about it. Because for me, those three records alone, I mean, Mike, those three records are better than everything he's done in the last 10 years. Everything. You can't find me nothing on Life is Good that's better than those three records.
P. White says that Eminem is a terrible beat picker. Yeah, he is. Terrible beat maker, too.
We're not going to make this about him. We need to go to who's number 2 on your list.
I was just about to say that. Who do you got at number 2? We're doing top 5 hip-hop albums of 2021. What's the second best hip-hop album of 2021 to you, Coop?
I mean, Mike, and it seems crazy that I'm saying this because, I mean, I was surprised at who I ended up picking at number 1 when I heard the album, and I feel the same way about number 2. It's his partner in rhyme. It's AZ with Do or Die 2.
Do or Die 2 at number 2.
Yeah, Do or Die 2 is masterful, Mike. Like, one of the things that really struck me about this album is the song selection in order in which he placed the song. This album flows, like, frighteningly smooth. And Easy, it's like you're on track 10 before you realize it. It's like, oh damn, like this nigga A is spitting. These beats are nice.
He is spitting.
His spit game is crazy, Mike. I mean, I know we're gonna talk about lyricist MC of the year. Oh, he's right there.
It's crazy because I think that, and not to interrupt you, I think that KD2 is a better collection of work. Excuse me. But I think AZ might be rapping better than Nas on this album.
Mike, if we're talking track to track, then you're absolutely right. Much like their careers, a lot of people tell you that, like, lyrically, AZ is one of the few people who could so quote unquote eat Nas up because of his style, which is very much G-rap influenced, like AZ himself said recently in an article that I read. So lyrically, track to track, he's better than Nas, but much like their career, it's those highlights and it's Nas's ability to contextualize and tell a story that make him a better MC. But just lyrically, bar for bar, yeah, AZ's better on Do or Die 2 than Nas is on King's Disease 2, Mike. And that's saying a lot because Nas lyrically hasn't been this sharp in a long time. Well, Mike, neither is AZ. And that's saying a lot too. Because
no, for real.
Relies on the lyricism and the wordplay more than Nas does because he doesn't have that nostalgic, reflective storytelling tone to his raps as in depth as Nas does. And he also vocally isn't as good as Nas. Like, he doesn't have all the gifts that Nas has. So lyrically, he focuses on staying sharp, but he hasn't been this sharp since probably his first 2 or 3 albums lyrically, much like Nas.
Very dope effort, man. And I love the way he was able to pull certain people into the game, into his world. The production's on point. His solo stuff is on point, and we're going to get to that when we talk about this West Side Gun effort. I can't wait to talk about that. But I got Do or Die 2 at number 3. You might be surprised. I don't know, man. I got Skyzoo's
All the Brilliant
Things at number 2. And it's like I keep consistently going back to that album and get even more and more impressed with it. Like, he's spitting on there too. I think that he should be nominated for, MC of the Year, Lyricist of the Year too, just for his work on here. And I've never been a super Skyzoo fan like that. Like, I've always loved, like, his ability to spit. I always thought he was a dope MC. But you know what I mean? Like, I've followed his work and what he's been doing. But this one right here, I mean, I listened to it. No one told me to listen to it or anything like that. And was like, I didn't hear any rave reviews about it before I listened to it, right? So when I put on All the Brilliant Things, I was like, yo, this next thing I know, I'm halfway through, if not, at the end of the album. And he did it pretty much for Dolo. The production's on point. I love the themes of the records. It's a very, very impressive album from end to end in a similar way that KD2 is. Now, obviously, AZ is a lyricist. He's who he is. But I just think this album, for me, while listening to both of them, I think All the Brilliant Things is a better album. Not by a whole lot, but
So we only have a slight difference in opinion because I got Skyzoo All the Brilliant Things at number 3, and I'm much like you. So I'll say this about Skyzoo and this album. Just on some just straight up and down rap shit, up and down, with no star power attached, which Nas obviously has with KD2, and with no rap legendary status attached. Because one thing, Mike, I've always been such a big Nas and AZ fan that I always try to contextualize and realize, no, I'm a big fan of those guys. I don't know how other people feel. One thing that's really been revealed to me with AZ doing Do or Die 2 is that, no, he is considered to be a rap legend by very many. And it makes me very, very happy and proud to say that because that's how I look at him. So, but just on some rap shit, Mike, All the Brilliant Things is probably what I would call the best hip-hop album. Just like on some rap shit.
Right.
On some rap shit on this album, it feels like what hip-hop feels like. Like KD2 feels like an iconic artist making another masterful piece of work, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just extends beyond the parameters of core hip-hop at times. Do or Die 2 is more of what I would like to call a grown man hip hop masterpiece. Really not embedded in the modernization of the culture, even though the artist is firmly rooted in the culture. Skyzoo's All the Brilliant Things is just still on some rap shit. I just didn't find the songs to be as great. Like the best songs on All the Brilliant Things to me aren't as great as the best songs on Do or Die 2, and definitely not on KD 2. Because part of my problem with this year, Mike, is I have Do or Die at 2 and Skyzoo's All the Brilliant Things at 3, and I have them close. But Mike, I believe there's a gap between number 1 and the rest of these albums at this point as well, though. Like this isn't no close number 2 and 3 to number 1. It's number 1, and then let's see where everybody else falls.
Well, see, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Skyzoo just made his seminal piece of work, in my opinion.
It is.
And like you said, it's different than, Legends coming with, surprising efforts. Like, to me, KD2 was surprising. I mean, I like KD1, but they came so quick. And Nas doesn't usually come back this quick. And then usually sequels are, not what the first one was. I thought they were just kind of going off of the whole Grammy hype and all that, and like, let's drop another one. But I was very surprised with how great KD2 turned out.
The quickness and the quality of KD1 made me so worried about when I heard KD2. But Mike, by the time I'd heard Death Row East, I was like, oh shit, which is track 2 on there. The intro on there is great too. By the time Death Row East went off, I was like, they done found something.
Well, see, I like the way the intro started, and you could tell a lot by Nas' effort by the intro.
So, Mike, and this is what so here's where Hit Boy hit the mark. He talks about it in the interview. I went and listened to all his intros to make sure that this fell in line. And it does, Mike. It's not the Stillmatic intro, which I would call the peak, but it's in a conversation for one of the 5 best intros on a Nas album. And it's better than the intro on the first KD, which was a really dope intro.
Yeah, when Nas comes with an intro, he really sets the tone on the project. And and whether it be the intro or the first song, right? Like the message was,
Mike, on all his classic work, the first song lets you know.
Oh, yeah. It lets you know. And that's what got my attention when it came to KD2. I was like, oh, yeah, we're on this shit. Yeah, we got a lot of people in the room. Welcome everybody into the room. We're talking about the top 5 hip hop albums of 2021. We're gonna get to the best MC of 2021 as well. And we're actually at number 2 and 3 right now. Me and Coop are talking about our number 2 and 3. We got KD2 at 1. Go ahead and subscribe to the According to Hip Hop channel on YouTube. Tell a friend. Join into the live. What did you think was the best, hip hop album of 2021 out there? What do y'all think are some of the more underrated hip hop albums that came out this year as well? And click the bell icon so you can be notified, when we go live. Again, KD2 number 1, and you got Do or Die 2 at number 2. And you have All the Brilliant Things by Skyzoo at number 3. I have Skyzoo at 2, and I got Do or Die 2 at 3. Who do you have at number 4?
I got West Side Gun with Hitler Wears Hermes 8.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I think this is probably, like, this album, to me, and we're going to rate it the way he wants it to be rated, which is as one comprehensive project. It's the most fascinating album to me, Mike. Because the collection, like the best of the best records on here are better than anybody else's best of the best. But one problem with his best of the best is that unlike Pray for Paris, none of this best of the best is just him. It was broken up. Mm-hmm. And 2 is just succinctly better than 1. And we're just going to give it some creative license here. He had time to correct what was wrong with 1, and 1 was pretty dope. 2 is really, really dope. If like just 2 by itself, Mike, I would probably put at number 2, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Westside told all of the people out here reviewing his album that he wanted side A and side B to be viewed as one album. Okay. I mean, listen, I don't agree with that because, again, when people put out double albums, they put both of them out at the same time. You don't have the time to go back and say, you know what, I'm gonna do some adjustments to side, B or whatever, and put this out later. Like Tupac wasn't able to put out side A of All Eyes on Me, and then on side B go rework it and see what the response was from the first side, and put side B out 2 weeks later. But with that being said, though, I do think those two coming together, it kind of weakens the project. All collectively, I think side A was dope. I think at the time it was in the album of the year conversation, but I think side B, as Westside said himself, was drastically better. And I also believe, like we talk about with every double disc, if both of these would have come together and he would have been able to make the proper cuts and make this one disc, I think that this would have possibly been the best album of 2021. That's how strong the high points of this album are. But it makes it very difficult for an album to flow in the ways that, the top three that we put up here, in the way that the KD2, Do or Die 2, or All the Brilliant Things flow when you have this many songs, this many collaborations, and just this much going on. It makes it tough to flow. And even with all that being said, it's still number 4 on my list, which is huge because the home runs are huge.
No, it's masterful. And Mike, so I mean, like, there was no need to put Julia Lang or TV Boy.
I fuck with Julia Lang. I think that was a great addition. I was listening to that before the show.
I mean, you do, Mike, but I mean, it's like, I don't really see what it did for the album. But I mean, this is what I mean about how it's like, there's album of the year stuff on here: Spoons, Vogue Cover, Westheimer, Bash Money, Hell on Earth 2, Free Cutter, 99 Averex, Forest Lawn, Best Dressed Demons, Oyster Tag.
Hell on Earth 2 is possibly one of the better hip hop songs of 2021, period.
It's going to be up there, Mike. I think it's one of the 5 best rap records I've heard this year. I mean, Mike, I told you it's like Griselda. The Griselda songs, when I say the Griselda songs, and I think 98 Sabres is the only one I would include. But if we're just talking about the records that have Conway, Westside, and Benny on them, I would only put this behind Brutus and George Bondo.
What? With all that being said, what is your favorite hip hop song of 2021? While we're on that topic,
Mike, Mike, I love Store Run.
Oh, really?
I do, Mike.
Off the top of my head, man, I'm going Praise God off of Donda.
I'll give you Praise God. You've said that too, Mike. There's a lot of stuff. Do you want to know what I do love about this year, even though I feel like King's Disease 2 is clearly the album of the year? From about 2 to 12, there's a lot of dope stuff. Like, I mean, when we get done I think we probably have different number 5s. But after that, when you get to just some of the stuff that, like, didn't make our top 5 list, it's like, no, this has been a good quality year so far. And like I said, those names that we mentioned, not dropping projects, could make this a great year, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But this is going to go down. This is going to go down like the way it's looking. As a hip hop head, this is looking like Nas's year. It's looking like AZ's probably getting his long due flowers publicly as a hip hop legend. And it's looking like Westside Gunn probably should have or could have had the album of the year had he combined.
Who would you say had a breakthrough year?
I mean, when you say breakthrough, I don't know if anybody had a breakthrough year, because how is Isaiah Rashad's project really,
I would say when it comes to the rap shit, right? I think Tyler, the Creator, might have had a breakthrough year.
He came to mind, Mike, but so many people already know who Tyler is.
But not for the rap stuff. Like, even with Igor, that was on some other shit, right? Obviously, NBA Youngboy is who he is. He's all his base is, insane.
Some other shit.
Yeah, for real. So it's hard to even say him, but I think as far as like being accepted in hip hop circles and all that, this has been a pretty breakthrough-ish year for Tyler. even though he's always had his audience. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. This is the moment where it's like everybody's like, no, like he really belongs to us and we like him.
Right.
Right.
With that being said, though, I mean, I think Baby Kim to a degree had a breakthrough year, but I think he had a breakthrough moment in the Praise God song. I think they really tried with Baby Kim because it's hard to say he had a breakthrough year because he put his album out and he had 2 Kendrick features. We've been waiting on Kendrick for like 4 years, and no one really, has responded in the way that I would imagine that the figure people would respond,
Tyler might be the best pick of all the names that you've named, because I get what you're saying and what you're trying to say when you're saying like breakthrough and how it applies to Tyler in this moment, because he's getting some hip hop credibility he hasn't
that he never got. Yeah.
Right. It's almost like you know what, Mike, not to be funny, it's almost like we cool with Tyler coming to the barbecue, and now it's like, yo, where this nigga Tyler at? He ain't coming to the barbecue.
Yeah, he cleaned up at the BET Hip Hop Awards in ways that he was never even invited to that show. He even kind of made a joke that he had never been to Atlanta or something, or it's been forever since he'd been to Atlanta. Like, I like it out here.
No, I get it. We can roll with Tyler on that. But all of your points are valid. I like what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, but back to the West Side.
Okay, we're back on.
Now I want to talk about the West Side a little bit more. I think West Side has set a standard for himself, right? And obviously, when you're following up something like "Pray for Paris" that's as excellent as it is, and it hits all the marks that it hit, you're gonna, it's an uphill battle. And I think that a lot of the things that he was able to knock out the park on Pray for Paris just weren't in existence on this. And I think that having so many collaborations drowned out the moments when he was by himself and was holding it down. Because I think if this would have been a healthy mix of TV Boy and, Julia Lang, and and then put some of the collaborations around those things, I think that it would have been different. But it's hard to put his album ahead of somebody like Skyzoo, AZ, and Nas's album when they held it down on their own, to be honest.
There's that part of it too, because Mike, all these tracks that I named, which are the highlights of side A and side B of Hitler Wears Hermes, these are all guest appearances.
Yeah.
There's no, and so a couple things. Listening to Hitler Wears Hermes 8 both sides, one makes me appreciate how truly brilliant and classic Pray for Paris is, Mike.
Yeah.
Like that Pray for Paris. Like Pray for Paris is epic, Mike. And and what else I hear is I hear somebody, like, Method Man always talks about how, like, I made Tikal on the tour bus. Like, this sounds like a project, although it's really dope. Well, Pray for Paris sounds like he went to Paris, took a break, came back, and, knocked this out the park. This sounds like he was on the go. And it's because he was, and these are some of the things that are going to happen when you get held to a different standard. Because Pray for Paris, for me, Mike, is a different standard.
Like he said, man, he was focused on a lot of things, right? He had an art gallery that opened up, and he wants to be remembered as one of the great curators in hip hop. I think what he said, and so, he said that he didn't want to be remembered as like the best rapper, just the best curator, because as far as their crew, Benny and Conway are the rapper type of guys, and but even with that being said, you could tell that there were other focuses, whether it be fashion, whether it be art, and where I don't know if those things were in the way during, Pray for Paris, but it didn't sound like it. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell Pray for Paris' full focus, or it sounded like it.
Right, that's what I mean. It sounds like, no, he took a break, took a breath, came back, was locked in. This sounds like great music, but it sounds like great music recorded everywhere, recorded separately. the cohesion just isn't there, Mike. And it's not because of the length of songs. It's just because it's not there. It sounds more like, even the great records, Mike, they sound like great records by themselves.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it flows. The only flow of great records is Hell on Earth 2 into Free Cutter. Those play beautifully together. None of this other stuff is even together. You know what I'm saying? And even if you were to kind of line it up together, it really wouldn't fit. Like Spoons doesn't fit next to Vogue cover back to back.
At the end of the day, it's just too many songs. And you know what? It's very difficult, especially being the creator. It's very difficult to make this much stuff and step back and say, you know what? I'm going to put this in order. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, when you're making this many records with this many collaborators and this many people have signed on and recorded and given you verses, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to keep everything. And we just going, you know what I'm saying, whoever likes whatever likes whatever.
Oh, Mike, you can do it to pretty startling effects. Look at what Ye did with The Month in Wyoming. So he did about, 28 tracks for rappers, including himself, in a month. I would tell you that, Mike, I mean, how many of those songs would you say came off well?
I think Nasir is better than people give it credit for. Obviously, Daytona's a classic. You know.
I mean, Mike, 3 of those 4 projects to me were pretty dope, and that was obviously Daytona, Nasir, and Kids See Ghost. Like, no, you can lock in and knock it out, but you have to lock in and knock it out. And that's why I'm saying, no, it's not about the length of the songs. It's about how it was put together. I don't think he had enough time to literally sit down and put it together and see what fits. Because my problem with Julia Lang and TV Boy aren't that they're not dope records. It's like, how does this fit? Where does this fit? Why does this make sense being here, seeing how I'm already acquainted with the record?
Well, let's be perfectly honest. I think that's why he kept pushing it back. Remember, we were waiting for this record to come out, and it was told that it was going to come out on a certain date, and it didn't. And then, and it was the whole thing where it's like, okay, well, I got to make sure it's mixed and mastered perfectly, whatever, But when those type of things happen, just like with Donda, you know that it's not coming together as cohesively as some other projects may have. Because you are having to delay and having to get right. And I know that was people's biggest issue with Donda. Me personally, and again, I'm a person that likes Electric Circus by Common. I give Donda all kind of style and creative points. I liked it. I got into it. I liked the personnel. I liked the, the risk that we're taking. And honestly, I like the overall sentiment. Mm-hmm. And it's a dope album to me. And you know what? Again, for people who weren't, tuned into our show a couple of months ago when Donda came out, you went to the live listening event in Atlanta. I didn't go. I heard everything you had to say about it. You can go back in another, video of ours and check out Coop's full review on that. I had the luxury, though, of being on the road when Donda finally dropped, and I actually was able to be in the car and ride to it and listen to the whole thing in ways that I might not have been able to do if I was, at the crib or just doing my day-to-day, because it's so lengthy, right? And it doesn't flow in a way where it grabs you immediately like a KD2 does, where you just keep listening to it. And just riding to it, I was like, you know what? I'm into this. I like this. There were a few songs that I skipped over, but overall, the songs that grabbed me, I liked. And so, long story short, I think it did suffer from the fact that it was just so much going on. Once again, just like Westside, whole bunch of collaborations, whole bunch of beats everywhere, sessions all over the place, and it was never galvanized into a place where this can be cohesive. I never liked those huge collaborations like that anyway, because you run into those things.
First of all, whoever Kanye's engineer is probably like the closest thing to indentured servitude or slavery that we currently have going on. I feel sorry for that guy. That album is how many tracks, Mike? It's like 27.
It's like 27 with all the part 2s and all that stuff. It's just all over the place.
Right, Mike, there's about 7 dope records.
7? Nah, I disagree with that. I was just listening to it. Let me pull it up on my iPad real quick.
Mike,
7?
Mike, when you told me you had time to ride and listen to it, I was like I felt sorry for you, like a little bit.
Nah,
Like,
I
oh man,
liked it, man.
I'm sorry you had to go through that,
You didn't
Mike.
like
Like, I'm
you didn't like
sorry.
Off the Grid? You didn't like Jail?
Jail's dope.
You didn't like Hurricane?
Hurricane's solid. That would be one of the 7. Yeah.
Praise
Keep going,
God.
Mike. Praise God, definitely. Praise God's probably my favorite too, Mike.
Junior?
I'm not big on that record.
Believe What I Say is dope.
Believe What I Say is dope. That's probably my second favorite record.
Oh, definitely. 24. Remote Control. I remember you talking about Remote Control when the album came out.
I like Remote Control.
Yeah. Moon.
So those, no,
You didn't like Moon? Okay.
not really.
Heaven and Hell.
Solid.
Okay. Lord Jesus is probably obviously a top 3 record on there. That's a debatable one, and I think that Jay Electronica could have verse of the year from that song. Lord Jesus is hard.
I mean, Mike, didn't we just name about 6, 7, 8 records though?
New Again. No, I done named like 11. I've named a lot of records.
And I believe I said no to about 3 or 4 of them.
No. Because you liked Off the Grid. Did you say you didn't like Off the Grid?
So, Mike, okay, so when I mean dope, I mean like some of the records you named to me, Mike, they're just like solid.
Okay. Pure Soul.
So Mike, huh?
Pure Soul.
That's good. I'm gonna give you that, Mike. So it might be more than 7. So let's say it's hold on. So Mike. So let's say it's closer to 10. Still 27. Divide 10 into 27.
We'll see. All right. So if we're talking about just the album itself, it's
tell me what
23.
Tell me what. No, this is his fault. Tell me what clip you hitting for when you make 27 songs and only 10 of them slap.
Well, 4 of them were part 2.
Is that what we should classify as a dope album? Because if 10 out of 27, if you can go 10 for 27, Mike, there's a lot of dope shit out here then.
I don't agree with your 10 for 27 assessment because really 4 of them of those 27 are part 2s, and all of those are good. So
now whose fault is that? That's him and that poor engineer that's being
I'm just saying it's just put together. Honestly, let's just keep it real. Def Jam threw this thing out because this man wouldn't give them a date, and they needed to have a date so that they could have a date for Drake. So they just threw these songs out. Because a lot of these records clearly, Kanye said himself that weren't even supposed to be out here. The Andre 3000 song, quote unquote, leaked, and I don't know how Drake leaks it. But yeah, I think that these were just thrown out there. But it is what it is. It's the album. It's available. But I don't buy too much into how scattered it is because I don't think it was supposed to even come out in this way.
Okay.
But West Side Gun put these out in that way.
Well, Mike, even with that being said, you still have to rate what we hear, what we're given. So it's like,
no, most definitely. It's not in my 5. It's not in my 5. I'm just saying, I think it suffers from what West Side Hitler Wears Herman's 8 suffers from. But I think the Hitler Wears Herman was more self-inflicted, where Kanye's was kind of like, he's been toying around with this whole Donda idea since 2018. Def Jam just said, you know what? No, we're putting this out.
I mean, so Mike, so let's just say it's 13 out of 27. That's still not good enough.
Shannon Williams says Donda was better than West Side Gun's BS. I mean, listen, a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel that Donda was a very dope effort. I'm with the Donda movement. I rock with it. I think it's a dope album. I understand why you feel like it's 10 for 27, which I don't agree with, but
Like, even if it's 13 for 27, that's still not good enough. Y'all are talking about an album where the records just aren't that great. I'm sorry, it's not.
It's an album that's tough to judge because it's not a lot of rapping from a rapper.
that's another problem with it too, in terms of being able to rate it as a rap album, like. But that's why I just keep bringing up the quality of the songs. Not even on no rap shit. Like, the best that y'all can do for all of y'all that like love this project is give me 13 songs out of 27. Now, when you say that out loud, when in the history of rap has a project ever considered to be dope, where only half of the songs on the project were dope at best?
Well, Jesus
That's
Lord is
dope
one of the
album.
strongest songs of the year, I think. And
And
Praise
it's not
God is
like,
one of the strongest songs of the
when
year.
when in this community have you been able to put out a project where only half of the album at best sounds dope and it's considered to be great? Like, what are we doing? That's all I'm saying. What are we doing?
What's your number 5?
I got Bo Jackson, Boldy James.
Why you got Bo Jackson, Boldy James? Because I got Tyler. Call Me If You Get Lost.
I guess this just goes down to aesthetic. I think you like all the ancillary things in rap more than I do at times. I'm a meat and potatoes guy, which is like the beats and the bars and the hooks. And that's what this album is. I'm going to go to something that I said last year when we were talking about Boldy. We talked about a few of his projects last year, Mike, because he dropped 4. He had a stellar year last year. The craft of emceeing is hard. We talked about this with LL Cool J. It's like, no. When you get a song from LL, like, you getting 3 verses and a hook, or you getting 2 long 224s and a hook, like, he's not going to shortchange you. Boldy's kind of built that way in an old-fashioned way, Mike. He knows how to do a full and complete song by himself with no help. But he also now, and he's always been a good collaborator, Mike. He just sounds like better as a collaborator. The collaborations on his album are some of the best collaborations of the year. They are. Alchemist, production-wise, is some of the best production stuff of the year. And so it checks all the boxes, actually. Like, you can play it from beginning to end. Beats are hard. Guest appearances are great. The MC is holding his own. And what I like about this album, he's bringing everybody into his world on this album. Like, they're in Boldy's world on Bo Jackson. Like, even with some of his best stuff on A Price of Tea in China, like Surf and Turf is my favorite record on there. Him and Vince, that sounds like a record for Vince more than even for Boldy, if that makes sense. Like, all these records sound like they're for Boldy.
You know what? That was really difficult for me picking between Tyler and Bo Jackson, because Bo Jackson was, dope from beginning to end, man. And Shannon Williams said, we're going to get to this. I want to get to this Shannon Williams comment. Look, Bo Jackson is my number 6. And it was really tough for me to choose between the two. I think where the separation was the fact that, kind of like what you said about All the Brilliant Things, it was just Tyler just had bangers that was just tough to ignore.
So when you say that, this is what I mean. I think this is where our aesthetic, even though we both appreciate the albums, comes in, because it's like when you said that, it's like, oh, well, Tyler don't have, because I just pulled up Boldy's album again. It's like, oh, well, he don't have no photographic memories.
Yeah.
He doesn't have no Diamond Dallas.
That's
he don't
fair.
have no Fake Flowers. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I mean is like, no, at the end of the day, how about this, Mike? When 2 albums are close like this, I'm going to get on my rap shit. And so Call Me If You Get Lost is by no means an inferior project to Bo Jackson. I'm just giving Bo Jackson a higher level, because I have Call Me If You Get Lost as my number 6. It was right outside my top 5. But I'm going to lean on that rap shit when I'm making those types of decisions more often than not. The only reason that I put AZ's Do or Die over All of the Brilliant Things is because even though I think Sky Zoo is an MC of the year contender, Mike, I would tell you I might have AZ as the front runner, and I think his project flows a little bit better. And about those 2 things, I have him slightly ahead. I could tell you the same thing kind of about the Boldy and the Tyler thing. It's like, oh no, the rap shit on the Boldy album, Tyler just don't have. He's got dope stuff. He's got bangers. Do you have this hip hop rap shit that Boldy got on here? You don't have no Fake Flowers on Call Me If You Get Lost.
He's not a spitter like him, and you're right. Now, I give you that.
But even like with the photographic memories, like with Rock Marciano talking about generational curses with my cursive, That's that rap shit that I'm gonna lean on when the albums are close. Like when your guest artist is coming in spitting like that and getting in, yeah, I'm gonna lean on that. And so that's my thing with Boldy over Tyler in that regard.
Shannon Williams says, "Damn, Mike and Coop, did y'all forget about off season, or is it not in the top 5 of the year? What do you have to say about that?"
So, Mike, I listed, because I knew this was going to happen too, I listed the albums that I could just name off the top of my head that fell right outside my top 5, because when I thought, I usually, when I do a top 5 list, I usually pick about 7. And so right outside of that, I have Tyler's album on mine, but I have La Maquina, The Off Season, Pray for Haiti, The House is Burning, Falarin 2. Those were the albums that I had right outside my top 5.
Well, let's talk about the off season, because a lot of people in the chat are upset at the fact that J. Cole's album didn't make the top 5 of 2021. What do you have to say about that?
It's just not better than the albums that we named overall. Like Mike. So let's not even go to Boldy's album. Let's go to Westside's album. Like, is there even a Mike? What's the best song between both of Westside's albums to me? Is it Hell on Earth 2?
Oh yeah. I think so.
Okay, there's nothing on the off season fucking with that. And don't confuse yourself like this.
Is there anything on the off season fucking with Bash Money?
Mike, or 99 Avarex, or Vogue Cover, or Westheimer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like when y'all are saying this, like, Mike, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. Mike, I'm just being objective. Like, no.
The thing is, man, I think with certain people... I think with certain people who have a name aren't, mentioned, it's like we're more engulfed in the name of the individual, the artist, other than the actual album sometimes. Because I think what are the strongest songs on the off season? Would you say the Pride is the Devil? I like Let Go My Hand. That was my favorite song on the album.
Those are the best songs on there to me too. I think we talked about that. Those are your 1 and 2, and my 1 and 2 just like separate, alternated.
I'm gonna keep it 100. I was more impressed with Wale's album than I was J. Cole's album. Is that fair to say?
I was too, but how about this? I would probably have those albums right next to each other, like 8 or 9, 9 or 10, but not top 5 for either one. Just truthfully speaking, because it's like. Because just when I wrote all these albums down, it's like, well, I don't think that the off scene's better than La Maquina or The House is Burning by Isaiah Rashad. And so Call Me If You Get Lost fell outside my top 5. So, Mike, just off that alone, I would have it at number 9. And that's if I didn't put Wale's Falarin 2 ahead. And then in that case, it would be at 10, Mike. And then the heads are going to kill me because I haven't bought up Pray for Haiti at all by Mach Homie.
Shannon Williams says Westside Gunn's album was garbage. What are y'all talking about? The content on off season was better, in my opinion.
So content, an album does not make.
I think that's a conversation, though. Does content not matter, though? Like, what would you say to people? What would you say to people that aren't really into the dope boy rhetoric over and over and over on every single song?
That's fine, Mike, and you don't have to talk that way to make a classic rap album. See the album that's at number 1 on our list.
I got you, but I'm just saying, like, when someone else, let's just say Wale, for example, shows an array of content and you put that up against, something that maybe people feel like is one-dimensional when it comes to maybe like a Bo Jackson or a Hitler Wears Her Man's 8.
Mike, it's about the quality of the music at the end of the day. Let's compare this year to last year and go back to King's Disease 1. I had King's Disease as the 4th rated album last year. The 3 albums ahead of it, in my opinion, were Pray for Paris, From a King to a God, and Alfredo. Those are gangster rap albums, Mike. Street rhetoric, street talk. I didn't pick those albums ahead of King's Disease because of the rhetoric. I picked them because the albums were just better from beginning to end. King's Disease 2 is better than all the dope boy talk this year. That's why it's at number 1. When you're great, Mike, you execute, and that's at the end of the day. Stop talking about his content like he's executing at the level that even a late career Nas is. There's no Death Row East on the off season, since you want to bring up content. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's nobody on the off season. Since you want to talk about content, there's no My Bible on the off season. Since you want to talk about content, you get what I'm saying, Mike? When people be saying this, they're saying it like Cole is operating at some sort of Nas level in terms of content, and it's like, no, he's operating in that realm, not on that level. And show me where it's there.
It's interesting because I think KD kind of had a similar, not KD, excuse me, KLD kind of had a similar type of thing going on with it in 2018. Like, it came at a point in the year that was fairly early in the year. But as the year progressed, I forgot more and more about that album. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like this about the off season. Like, I didn't forget it because it's in my notes, but I did kind of forget it as a listener. You know what I mean?
Neighbors, isn't Neighbors on KOD?
Yeah.
I think that's the only moment on there. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, no, he's capable. He has moments like that where he'll put together a record like that, concept and concept-wise, lyrically be who he is and deliver. It's just not enough of that going on for him for the level that everybody else keeps placing him at, especially his fan base. And that's why I just bring up, well, where's the Death Row East? Since you want to talk about content, let's go to our number one album, the guy that is like the king of content. And he just doesn't, and I'm just going to say this, Mike, he just doesn't excite you with his content the way that he does. Like it's just not as exciting, Mike. But there's some stuff that Nas did concept and content-wise, Mike, that has stuck with his legions of fans for like 20, 25 years. Mike, how many times do I talk about the setup, Mike? I can still see the setup visually in my mind because he took it there. And so people got to stop acting like Cole is taking it there to that level. His records are not taking it there.
Well, with that being said, you're from Charlotte, North Carolina, right? So what is your standard for J. Cole?
No, Mike, this is what I'm saying is nobody wants him to be greater than me, but I'm going to call it like I see it. Is he great? Yes. Has he made a great album in my estimation in Forest Hills Drive? Yes. Does he have material out here song-wise to lend credence to how people feel about him? Yes, but not at the level that people keep saying. And so I'm going to keep on saying that because it's just an honest assessment. It's
but
not
based on the song, I guess is what I'm asking, like, because you were bringing up the setup and things like that for Nas. Sonically for you and catalog-wise, where is your standard for Cole? Like, when you hear Cole stuff you wanted to meet, what standard? Like, what songs of his are that level for you?
So how about this? When they're talking about Cole and content, like the start of Forest Hill Drive, like January 28th, that guy.
Okay.
That guy on January 28th. Yeah, the guy on January 28th. Like that guy. Like that's not on the off season. That guy's not there on the off season like that. He's in that realm. But this is what I keep on saying. He's always in that realm. When are you going to take it to that store run, nobody, Death Row East level with the content? When? That's all I'm saying. Because he gets talked about that way. And so if we're going to talk about him that way, I'm going to expect it that way. So let's go to this, Mike. You said Pride is the Devil. You said Let Go My Hand or Pride is the Devil. So let's say those are the two best records on the off season, right? Mike, where would those records be on KD2? And you have the answer to my question because I don't think either one of those records are better than the 5 best records on KD2.
Yeah, that makes it difficult, man. It really does. And I think that a better...
This is not 96 Nas.
You know what, man? Listen. Forget Nas. Nas is Nas. You really want to sit here and listen to Skyzoo's All the Brilliant Things and listen to the off season and tell me which is the better album and who's the better MC on it. Like, let's be fair without, just putting names into the whole conversation. And that's what I had to do with Skyzoo's album, man. It's like, I'm going to listen to this album for, I don't know who the MC is. Like, obviously I do, but you know what I mean? Like, let's listen to these albums like the albums as opposed to this is Skyzoo and this is J. Cole,
No, Mike, so let's go back. Nobody in their right mind is about to sit up there and tell you, after listening to AZ's album, go listen to AZ spit on Do or Die 2, and then go listen to Cole spit on the off season. You tell me who sound better this year. Like, what are we talking about? That's what I'm saying. It's like, no, Mike, we just gonna talk about it up and down for what it is. That nigga AZ spitting crazier than Cole on Do or Die 2. Like Mike, AZ is rhyming on a track with the guy who we feel is the best MC in the game, in Conway, and with the reinvigorated Wayne, Mike, and he ain't missed a step or a beat. Like, his verse is right there with theirs. Like, where you get what I'm saying? It's like, no, let's rate it on that level. Where Cole got that at? Where's that at? Where's it at? That's all I'm saying.
Where do you rank the off season in 2021?
I would probably have it at about 9 or 10 right now, Mike. Somewhere between 9 to 12, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you think that it was better than Conway's album? Because I know that was the conversation.
I mean, so Mike, that's what I mean. Is like, I prefer Conway's album. I'm not overly impressed with either one of the projects as a whole from what I expect from the artist. They're both really good projects. You know? It's like, like when I heard La Maquina, I was like, oh no, this is really dope from Conway, and he got more, because I've heard more.
I was impressed with Florin too. You know what I'm saying? Like when I heard that, I was like, yeah, this is dope. And I mean, similar things with all right, I'm gonna go back and listen to the off season again. We'll probably revisit this conversation on Friday. But I remember hearing it and being like, I felt like Cole was trying too hard from the jump. Like the intro, he's another artist. Like the intro will tell you a lot about what you're about to hear on a Cole album.
Yeah. What's that? The freestyle where he's just spazzing out on? That was dope.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if it was the production or what, but again, he got a lot of different production on this one. I mean, listen, I was more impressed with the Big Sean and Hit Boy EP that was put out a week or so ago. That was dope.
That was actually a really dope project, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was more impressed with it than the off season. I think that might be a little bit of a reach, but I get what you're saying. I would put it in the same realm. And this is what I keep saying about Cole. It's like, no, I know he's great. I know he's capable of great things. Do them at a high level, and do them consistently. That's it.
I'll be fair. I'm going to go back and listen again, and we could talk about this Friday, but, from what I know of this year, I can't put it ahead of those 5 albums that I had up there. Shannon Williams said, Mike, Wale's album was definitely great in my opinion, but a lot of people don't rock with him. Yes, Michael Sanders says, no need to listen to J. Cole album again, Mike. Don't waste your time.
No, see, here's the thing. I don't think she understands Shannon. Mike don't really like rock with Wale like that, and he likes the album. It's a dope project, and that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm talking about with Cole. So Cole needs to have the ability to do as an MC what Wale just did to you is that put forth a project from somebody who you're not a big fan of, and say, hey, you want to know what that? He just came through with a dope ass project.
Is Certified Lover Boy a top 10 hip hop album of 2021?
No. I have Meek's album, Donda's album, and Certified Lover Boy all right next to each other as albums that I thought people were going to bring up that have no business being talked about as top 10 albums.
So you got the off season over Certified Lover Boy.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your issue with Certified Lover Boy? Because I can give you mine.
I mean, I'm about to say I have many, but it's a solid project. It's not anything special or stellar going on there. I mean, I think when we did our review, we spoke to the 25-year-old rhetoric coming from a 35-year-old man.
Yeah.
Spoke to him being carried, it appears, by some of the highlights on the album by the feature artists. So those would be some of the main drawbacks, just if memory serves. And this is what I mean. When you make dope shit, it just sticks to people's ribs. Like, I had to think about what my critiques for Certified Lover Boy were right quick, because I haven't listened to it, because it really didn't stay with me. The same way the off season really didn't stay with me. The same way Donda really didn't stay with me. Same way Meek's album really didn't stay with me. It's because the albums weren't that strong. When the album is strong, it stays with you. Not just a record or two, But the album, you can go get a record or two from anybody.
No, definitely. No, I think that's pretty clear and concise as far as like, what we were all thinking about Certified Lover Boy and what we kind of said in our review as well. Yeah, just the lack of growth and like you said, it's sounding like the featured artists were the main artists on that record, but again, that's another one that I think.
And let's go back to J. Cole right quick. Like, when everybody's like, "Oh, y'all ain't got Cole here, y'all ain't got Cole there," it's like, name the records, show me the albums, like just show it to me, because it's like I want them to have it probably more than you do, but show it to me. You know, give me the proof. Like, because I'll throw some records at you from other cats, like, you know what I'm saying, and just be like, "Where's this at? Where's this at? If he is that, where is this at?"
Right. No, 100%. I mean, and that's the only way that albums should be even considered. We can't just give people points because of who they are.
Right. We don't talk about the off season because it's Cole and he has a big core following. Ain't nobody really been talking about the off season. Like, the off season ain't been bubbling this year like that.
All right, Terminator 2 says you got Drake but not Common or Lloyd Banks. Shaking my head. What did you think about we'll talk about the Common because Terminator 2 keeps bringing up Common.
Why we shouldn't make people suffer by talking about the Common, but okay.
Yeah, listen, man, the Common album was very forgettable. Yeah. Listen, Common said that he wants to work with Kanye again. I think that's a good idea.
I mean,
go get some.
Please. For the sake of us all, please.
Okay, and as far as the other individual here, Lloyd Banks. What did you think about the Lloyd Banks album?
I thought that was a really good project. It was just one of those things that didn't really stay. It's definitely going to be in the top 20. It's probably going to fall somewhere between 10 to 15, depending on who drops in this next few weeks.
Yeah, I think it could be in the slept-on conversation. I think it's one of those albums that, if you listen to.
I kind of wish he would have dropped it later in the year now that I'm looking back at it, because it's like I felt like maybe it would get more of the recognition it deserved had he dropped it like maybe in the summertime.
Who's MC of the year for 2021?
That's a really tough question because I was really just banking on it being Conway because I just knew he was about to drop this second project and it was going to be stellar. But if we're just talking about the MC of the year right now, Mike?
It might be Nas.
Mike, it's between Nas and AZ. I never thought I would say this. And what's even crazier about it is that I actually have AZ probably in the lead in that. Because, Mike, he's actually done other work, and I'm going to stand on that. It's like, no, when it gets close, no, I'm going to give you bonus points for throwing Conway and Wayne on that joint and doing your thing. I'm going to give you bonus points for smashing that 99 Averex.
I was going to say 99 Averex, yeah.
99 Averex, I mean, Mike, like AZ has a lot of Verse of the Year contenders, this year.
Yeah. So what is Verse of the Year?
Now, Mike, that is a great question. So let's talk about that. I think Gibbs on Fake Flowers is still up there. Would you say that?
Okay, I'm with that.
Electronica's verse on
Jesus Lord.
Yeah, Electronica's verse on Jesus Lord is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Lauryn Hill's verse on Nobody is right there. And I would have to see, and this is what I mean, like Nas and AZ have a lot of Verse of the Year moments this year, which is why I would pick them. But I don't know if either one of them has one verse that succinctly is better than the three that I just named. In terms,
I like Nas's verse on EPMD too. I would nominate that. Does Andre's verse on Life of the Party?
That's a contender. I was thinking Nas's second verse on Store Run more than I was thinking about that than the EPMD verse, but you could go with that one too. That the EPMD verse is more lyrically inclined. That second verse is just more encompassing all the things that Nas is as a great MC, which is why that verse is great. It's like, no, all of Nas is on the second verse of Store Run. Like Nasty Nas is in there, Esco is in there. like just Nas is in there, like all of Nas is on that second verse of Store Run. That's why I would lean on that the EPMD 2 verse is more lyrically inclined, just bar for bar.
Right. Listen, I'm with you on that. I think that, there's still a little bit of time for us to kind of expound on some of these thoughts, but a lot of this is going to be going in the yearbook and, kind of closing the chapter on that. I do want to be fair, though. I do want to go back and give the off season another listen, I guess, months ahead. But the thing is, J. Cole is such a mainstream artist. And we've seen this in years past, and we've even seen this with Drake's album. If he really had joints, they would be all over the NBA right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would have songs, the TNT would be playing, it'd be in the background of the NFL. And so the fact that we're not hearing anything and he doesn't have things that are circulating like that is indicative of that project. You know what I mean?
No, Mike, you're right. That's what I'm saying. It's like people be so quick to shout his name. It's like, no. Stop shouting his name and show me the records.
Because when KOD came out, Count It Up, I mean, they still play Count It Up.
Yeah, but Mike, I mean, like, did that record really stay with anybody like that? It's like everybody wants him to win, but it's like, show me the records that's sticking with you, that's making you say that, Mike.
People in the chat are telling me, don't go back and listen to it. Oh, man, y'all are brutal, man.
Brutally honest, Mike. After Let Go My Hand and Pride is the Devil in that freestyle, Mike, the rest of the stuff is just solid. That's what I mean. It's just like, no, I can go get solid tracks from a dude anywhere. There's about, like, so Mike, you want to know what the off season is? It's an album with a bunch of solid songs and 3 stellar tracks. I can get that out of a lot of projects, Mike.
Because people want him to win. LP said, facts, Mike. They want to praise him. And they would praise him if this album was up to snuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess that's a fair point.
How about this, Mike? Mike, if he had made a project like All the Brilliant Things, his core base would be talking about him like as the greatest MC of his generation.
Of course. 100%. I agree with that.
If he made a project like that, like
same song, same lyrics, all that. Same exact project.
If that project said J. Cole on it, like, yeah, it would be crazy. We would be talking about this album constantly.
Many people would say it's album of the year.
Mike, it wouldn't even be a question. It'd be like, how can you say King's Disease 2 is better than this? There's no way it's better than this.
I'm going to reach out to Skyzoo, man. I would love to talk to him because I do think that All the Brilliant Things is the second best and possibly the best hip-hop album of 2021. I mean, we've already given our opinion on why KD2 would, get that nod over it. But I would love to talk to him because I think he made a very special album that I don't think should get lost in the sauce because, I
don't want to get lost either, Mike, because it's it's I don't know how else to say this. It's just hip hop done the right way.
It's what we're here for. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's what we're here for the people who don't get that super push, who are making some dope quality hip hop music. Like, I mean, we interviewed Love the Genius. We interviewed Mickey Fax, who both dropped quality efforts this year as well. So I would love to talk to Skyzoo and just kind of get, his mindset and, putting together this great piece of work because, that's what we're here for.
No, he deserves to be acknowledged for putting this project together, especially for how long he's been around. That's even the more beautiful thing about the opportunity to just give him some more flowers for this project. It's like this is one of those projects. It's like, oh, look what happens when you stay down. Your moment may come. And so we got to, give him the proper light that he deserves for his moment because not enough people who aren't heads are talking about this album.
Definitely. All right, so what drops Friday is, I know French Montana's dropping his album, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something else that's dropping Friday. People in the chat, if y'all know what's dropping, please let us know. I'm trying to think what we're going to be covering on Friday, what we're going to be talking about. Let me see. Somebody else said something about...
Probably finding all the J. Cole stands that are going to pop up and blister us for how we just got done talking about them.
Yeah, I'm sure the J. Cole fans hate us right now. What else is dropping on Friday?
All right. Tell them to make more shit like January 28th.
No, I'm sitting here thinking that somebody else is dropping. It might just be French Montana.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, the French Montana album. I mean, he released the track list. He got everybody on there. I mean, French Montana's a heavy collaborator, so.
Mike, that
Um,
is the barbecue. You know, talking about getting invited to the barbecue. It's like, no, he's throwing his own barbecue. And he invited everybody to guest list. Looks stupid.
well, I mean, you did want to talk about Kanye West giving Beanie Siegel his props too, right?
I mean, it's just one of those things. Okay, so I'm just gonna say live what I said to you on the text thread, which was is like, and this nigga Jay couldn't hand Beans $1 million.
Well, I
That's
mean,
that,
why would
that's
Jay? Why would Jay do that?
because it's because here's what I'm saying. So this is what I mean when I talk about how like you can't tell me that Ye's not kind of doing this to kind of be like this is how you're supposed to treat him.
Well, the
You
thing
know,
is, and one thing I will say that Beans did add to Jay-Z at that time, right? Jay-Z is Jay-Z, and I think he has that mentality too. Like, I work hard, I'm gifted, and I carry my own. I made myself type thing. He's even said that. But what I will say, that whole Philly sound and Philly wave and that whole state property thing and everything that added to Rockefeller Records and added to Jay-Z as an individual, that's
it's,
Beans.
it's Beans.
And
So
and even his ability to work with Scarface in the way that he had been with those, with Beans being involved, Beans is a big part of that. And not to mention a lot of records that were meant for Beans that he ended up getting, or flows that he ended up getting by way of Young Chris or whatever, those ideas, Beans brought that to the table.
no, that's all Beans, but it goes back to what I was saying about Ye in our previous show from the Drink Champs interview. It's like, and why don't more cats want to get behind a guy like this and Bill? You see what he just did? Like, Mike, I mean, if this really comes to fruition and is real, and I'm going to trust Ye on this one and say he's going to make this happen because he has the money to make it happen, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this is how we're supposed to treat each other in business because he's doing this because he's saying, like, no.
Why
Like,
wouldn't he make it happen? He
hold
brought
on.
this up. Like nobody else brought this up. Like
But, yeah,
Beans has never even brought this up.
that's why I believe he's going to make it happen. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about, you know, him being real enough to acknowledge the fact, like, no, like Beans came up with the whole Yeezy thing and to have the clarity in his mind about how he's supposed to do it. Like, I owe this nigga a check. I've been looking for this dude. Like how many of us as black people, not even with the amount of money that he has, like thinks that way, like with the integrity of it. I'm talking about the integrity within our community of saying like, nah, like this done became a whole brand worth billions of dollars that started with this nigga calling me this name and baseline.
No,
Let me,
for real. And again, I think the other noble part of it too is the fact that we've seen Beans get on all kind of rants and go on DVDs, smack DVDs, whatever. He has never said, "Yo, I gave Kanye his name. Where's my like?" He's never said that, and Noriega didn't even ask him this, so he brought this up on his own. Like,
right.
yeah.
See, that's what I mean. They're like Ye's a thinker too. That's why it's like, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and make all of this right the way it's supposed to be. Like, I'm gonna put Beans where he's supposed to be in this because that's really where Beans is supposed to be in this.
For everything that Beans added to that Rockefeller movement. And you're right. He should be awarded for that. And if this award or him being awarded for that comes in this form, it's only right. And, I don't want to say hate to say it, but it is what it is. As far as like the people in the Rockefeller team, and like you said, if he cuts this check and he stays true to everything that he said he's going to do in regards to Beans, and we know that he's living like this with Dame anyway. I mean, yeah. Kanye's kind of the new leader of the Rockefeller movement. Mike, it is what it is.
He's putting on the people who put him on. That's what it's supposed to be about.
And he's still respecting Jay in the process,
Yeah.
He still called Jay the boss.
Mike, that's the that's the bossiest thing he did because he didn't have to.
Yeah. And then not Beans, Biggs is in the Drink Champs interview as well.
Biggs pulled up. Now, Mike, who Who really run it?
So yeah, man, I think that was a wonderful thing. I think that's a wonderful sentiment, and like you said,
we need.
people need to move like that, and you need to respect and appreciate the people who helped you get to where you are. Now, obviously, when you get to a certain point, not saying anybody did all the hard work for you, but we're all inspired by, all kinds of things around us, and to acknowledge that, I think
Right.
is awesome.
But here's what I'm saying is that like when Ye does something like this, we don't need to be questioning it. We need to be like clapping for it. Like yes, this is what
Yeah.
we're supposed to be doing. Like yeah, let's get with this program. So for whatever people may think about him, and I know people even at the interview still calling him crazy. It's like no, that's not crazy. What you've been taught to think about how to move in business with your own is crazy. Like we got to do a lot of self-correcting to stop calling him crazy, because a lot of the stuff that he's doing is actually stuff that we fundamentally should have been doing, but we don't.
Well, you know what I think is crazy? And it's a lot of things. And I want to talk about like live performers, right? And the fact that it seems that Travis Scott is getting the brunt of all of this stuff that went on at his concert.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if people just now are knowing what Travis Scott concerts look like, but his concerts have always been totally turned up, and that's kind of part of his selling point, and his fans know what they're getting. Now, granted, it was tragic what happened there, and I think that the part that is a miscue from the public is he doesn't know what's going on out there. And as a performer, it's honestly not even his job to know what's going on out there. It's kind of the promoter and the venue and Live Nation's job to know what's going on out there. Now, if you want to blame him for just the themes of his music and everything that brings and all that, I get that. But to absolve Live Nation from all of this smoke, I think is misdirected. Give them both equal smoke if we're going to be like that.
Mike, everybody deserves all the smoke in this, even the people who attended, because you spoke to something very strong, and I don't want this to come off as insensitive anyway. Well, if you listen to Travis's music, if you listen to the rhetoric, if you're familiar with this event, oh, Mike, this is like not... The deaths may be uncommon, but the energy and all the commotion that led to it, not uncommon in the music or at this live event and venue. And so what has really been surprising to me is how many people who attended the event acting surprised that like it couldn't get raised to a level.
It was in his hometown. You're very familiar.
Right.
I remember I wrote an article on this, man. This was a New York concert he did a few years back. They were jumping off of the balcony, second level, to see who wouldn't get hurt. Dude got paralyzed out there. And I'll give Travis credit, too. He knows how it gets down at his concerts. He be telling his people to chill. He does, like, when it gets really real, what he can see, he tells people to chill.
And so, but this is what I'm saying is like all these people that showed up acting like they didn't know like what the scene was like there. And I'm not saying like, and my heart goes out to the families of those who passed. It's truly, truly unfortunate. But everybody attending one of Travis's events knows what time it is. And that's the point that I'm making, Mike. It's like, no, like, you know what time it is at Travis event. This isn't Common and the Roots getting together for a show, Mike. It ain't that.
They don't want to see that.
Right. And so like the way that the footage is coming out from people who were at the event acting, it's like, no. There's a lot of drugs, alcohol, and mosh pitting going on at Travis's shit.
I tell you all the time when Travis drops shit, I be like, yo, every time I hear his stuff, I be thinking about how it's going to play live. Like that's part of my mindset. Like when Astro World came out, I'm like, yo, this is going to be crazy live.
Mike, he talks about creating a mosh pit in his music.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stop acting like you don't know what time it is. You very much knew what time it is when you showed up. It's just when unfortunate things like this happen, everybody has to choose sides, but everybody's to blame.
Shit
And
gets
so,
real. It shit gets real when it gets real. You know, it's like we talk about 3-6 all the time. Like, you go to one of their shows, at least in their prime. I'm sure it's different now, and it might not be. But you know what you're about to see, and you got to be ready for that. And but to
yeah.
blame the artist when we're talking about 50,000 people out there, like there's no way. It's unfair to blame the art. You don't know what's gonna go on. I'm gonna go on a short little story. Right, I went to a Childish Gambino concert.
Yeah.
Me and my guy Will and Kimberly, they were living in Miami at the time, and Gambino was coming to Atlanta. This was like 2014, right? And so um, this is before Atlanta. This is when he had Because the Internet out. So this is before like really his crossover success, really. And so I told them, I was like, I don't know how many people gonna be out here. I don't know what his fan base in Atlanta looks like. It was at the Masquerade, smaller venue or whatnot, and it was outdoors. A lot of people showed up, and his core audience was there. And so it was Chance the Rapper's DJ who opened up for him. So when he finally came out, that small crowd, they were pushing. And it was, you would think Michael Jackson had just hit stage. And so this couldn't have been no more than, I don't even think it was well, it might have been a little bit more than 1,000 people. But it damn sure wasn't 50,000 people. And when those people all start moving in one direction, yeah, people could, people could get trampled. And at that event, it was like in March. It wasn't hot outside. It was like 4 or 5 kids that passed out. So this stuff is common at these shows, and 50,000 people, that's just accelerated to the nth degree. And if we want to keep it real, Travis didn't sell these tickets. Live Nation did. Y'all want to sit here and blame the capacity and blame the lack of security or whatever was going on there or the checkpoints? Travis don't have nothing to do with that.
So, Mike, this is what I was going to say, is that when something like this happens, everybody's going to assume some liability. I will tell you the liability that Travis potentially plays legally, and that is people can say, well, his words incited a riot.
Yeah, definitely.
And so from that perspective, he does have liability because in the court of law, that's a viable thing to bring up. You do have creative free use of speech, but also, too, here's what comes with that free speech. It incites other people's feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. And so a lot of drawback from him legally is going to come from that ramification. I'm with you on everything else.
What exactly, if we're talking about, I lost my train of thought. Oh, what type of ramifications are we looking towards moving forward, like when it comes to a Travis Scott concert? Because, yes, he's already been cited for that before. I think Tyler, the Creator, has too. I think that was in, where was that at? That might have been South by Southwest. But, yeah, they want to see a turned up Travis Scott concert. So now, that's probably not going to happen as much anymore since there are going to be parameters here. So how does he move forward as a performer, and what do Travis Scott shows look like moving forward? Do you decrease the audience? Do you decrease the energy? And what does that do for him musically?
Well, I mean, for me personally, if I was a part of his team, I wouldn't even be talking about or considering any of that right now, because here is the thing. When you are big enough and you do have enough money, so we're going to sit our ass down from these shows for at least a year and let all of this play out, and also just let you fall under the radar till, quite frankly, a bigger piece of hip-hop news pops up. So the best thing that he could do, in my opinion, would be to just not do any shows for the next 365 days. And he got the money and the clout to do that, and he can still go produce tracks for other cats. He can even release a project if he wants to, but this whole show shit, you need to table that for the next 365.
Well, I think that, people who are in 360s or who are signed to the majors like that, if you're not performing, they're not going to put out any music. And it's unfortunate because he just dropped 2 songs two
He can
new
navigate
songs
around.
right
He's big
before
enough
this
to,
happened that were dope.
but he's big enough to navigate around that as an artist and as a producer. He can navigate around that for a year. He'll be fine.
Right, but you don't want to waste the album that you can't perform on. That's just wasting money. You know what I mean?
I mean, Mike, performing while in litigation for all these things while people have passed away is not a good look.
Well, it is that. Well, of course, yeah, you're right. I agree. You can't go out there and perform at this point while you're in litigation. But I
Now
think
it's
that
still,
halts the music too. So he's not going to drop any new music.
but Mike, but this is what I'm saying. If you go out and perform, it's zero tolerance, Mike. Nothing can happen.
Yeah, and
Like if
something
somebody
always happens at those shows. It's just what it is.
shows, Mike, if somebody sprained their ankle, it's gonna be some shit at one of his shows. You can't even afford that right now. Like it don't even make no sense. Like it doesn't.
And
Like
you
as
know, and I hate to sound like this too because obviously people lost their lives and it's tragic. This whole situation is tragic. But for him as a performer and feeling at fault to some degree, just going out there doing his show as he normally does it, I mean, I'm sure this is traumatizing for him too.
no, this has got to be rough for him because Mike, he's probably sitting back reflecting. It's like, well, did my words incite some? Like you have to be asking yourself these questions when Mike. I mean, this isn't the first occurrence of something violent happening at one of his shows. This is just Mike. It's like I was explaining this behind the scenes to somebody. I was like, that's not familiar with him really. I'm like, no. I'm like, his shows are always like this. This is just when the outcome ends out on 10 instead of the 7 or 8 it usually turns out to be.
Right.
Yeah, this is what happens when it goes on 10. And so he is thinking about those things as any solid man should be thinking and questioning himself about those things right
and,
now.
And people are bringing up his deals, his McDonald's deal, his Jordan deal, and all that stuff, saying that, he's good. But see, again, when you're depending on those things, I mean, we seen from the baby, you're never good. I mean, they took him off of Fortnite over this stuff. Like, who's to say that, okay, your presence right now is not a good look for our brand? Who's to say that, all of those things can't be taken away, unfortunately? And it kind of brought me, and this is why I even brought up this whole situation, because you were talking about, people, following Kanye's lead in that sense. I was thinking about, the fact that Boosie does, Boosie Bash, and he does it on his own and all of that. And when everybody closed the door on the baby, because all of these promoters work for the same venues, and I'm sure Live Nation runs all of these festivals ultimately. When all of them closed the door on this man, and he did Boosie Bash because Boosie runs Boosie Bash, it's his shit, people were clowning him for it. People were like, oh, now, this is all you got to do. Like, no, that's a powerful thing. Honestly, more artists need to do what Boosie's doing so that they can control their own destiny, unfortunately.
So this is what I mean about how we look at things backwards. It's like, no, like Ye's not crazy, and Boosie doing that is a boss move.
It is. It's not. Yeah, it's not one of those things like I have to settle for this, and it's unfortunate that people even see it like that.
Like when we be having these conversations, the fact that I even have to clarify, or that you have to clarify that that's a boss move, like it really pisses me off. It shows me how problematic things are. Still.
Yeah, but and unfortunately, Travis probably doesn't want to perform anytime soon because of how traumatic this is, but at the end of the day, no one's going to let him perform anytime soon either. And that's the bigger problem.
And so that's what I'm saying, Mike. No, you're big enough. You have enough money. You have enough resources. You always have yourself to fall back on as a producer. You need to sit down and wait this out.
I don't know if he has much of a choice because, again, he's contractually obligated in so many different facets. That he does have success and he does have his own bank account and all those things, but he doesn't have a lot of power when it comes to that.
Look here. Grab that passport. Go see all these places.
Yeah.
That you've been seeing while you've been doing shows, but go really see them this time and have a good time. I'll see you in a year.
It's the only thing you can do, and hopefully that's what people in his corner are telling him right now.
Grab that passport. Copy a little carry.
Show up to your court dates,
Grab your little tote and carry luggage, support black business, and get on the plane.
It's an unfortunate situation, but again, it's many of these entertainers could be demonized in 1 minute, and I just think it's unfortunate that he seems to be taking the brunt of all of this, whereas whoever runs Live Nation is not. That's the unfortunate part. Because we don't get individual names when it comes to who runs certain companies. It's just the company, and the company's not even getting that smoke. But when it comes to Travis Scott, he's the face of this.
Mike, that's about liability. That's why they run the game that way.
Yeah.
There's nobody that you can go to right now and call and pin this on at Live Nation now, is there?
He's a ghost. He or she or whoever you have to speak to in Live Nation about this is a ghost. When you see these articles about this, it's going to show Travis's face every time. Every news article you're going to see when it comes to these 8 to 9 deaths, I forgot which number it was, they're going to show Travis Scott's face. His face is going to be synonymous with this incident. Now, granted, it was his concert, but there's nothing that he could have done to prevent that. Now, there are some things that Live Nation could have done to prevent that.
Passport.
So,
tote and carry luggage.
It's, I pray for everybody involved in this situation. It's very tragic. And I think for hip-hop concerts moving forward, it's definitely going to be a game changer on a legal basis. And I'm just interested to see how, festivals especially are going to be changed from this.
It is going to change. You want to know what this is? This is the Malice in the Palace moment for hip-hop.
Yeah. For festivals, period. But yeah, especially hip-hop festivals or festivals that have hip-hop acts, because they kept making sure they said rapper Travis Scott. And they're already very hard on hip-hop shows in the first place. The insurance is sky high for hip-hop shows because of possible danger. So this is going to,
Mike, we living in America. We know this already.
Yeah.
Like, we live in America.
So, prayers up to everybody involved. I hate that, people lost their lives. They just wanted to go out to a concert and have some fun, man. No one's expecting to go to a concert and lose their life and,
No, they're not, Mike, but they were going out to have a certain type of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, stay off the drugs, kids, man. Drugs are bad, definitely. So, I think we can end the show with that.
Nice little PSA, Mike.
Yeah, drugs are bad. Drugs are bad, especially at concerts when it's hot and, it's 50,000 people pushing. And, you want to... But I hope they find whoever that is that was allegedly... Well, I don't even want to say allegedly because a police officer was stabbed with the needle or whatever. You heard about that part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, craziness, man. Craziness. But... we might or might not talk about this French Montana album. I think the people don't want us to talk about it, but I'm sure something else is going to drop too, and I know there's going to be a whole bunch that we're going to be able to speak about. But yes, to recap, we're working on the 2021 yearbook that will be available on Amazon as soon as we're finished with it. We want to have it ready for people in time for the holidays. We really appreciate y'all's support of the channel and the growth that the channel has going on, man. Let's keep that rolling. Tell all your friends to go ahead and subscribe to According to Hip Hop and click the bell icon so you know when we're going live. And to recap the albums, we got Nas's King's Disease 2 at number 1. Hip Hop album of 2021. Coop had Do or Die 2 at number 2. I had All the Brilliant Things from Skyzoo at number 2. And Coop had All the Brilliant Things at number 3. I had AZ's Do or Die 2 at number 3, and we both had Westside Gunn's Hitler's Where's Herman's 8 at number 4. You had Bo Jackson at number 5. I had Tyler, the Creator's Call Me If You Get Lost at number 5. And we're going to go listen to J. Cole again, I guess. But I still think Wale's album was better. And if you have to ask me, I'm going to have to say Drake's album was better than the Off Season 2. Just going to keep it real.
Gotta keep it real, Mike. Can't be lying to people.
And like that, we are out.